Okay, so we are here. Thank you for joining us to talk more about the Masters of Professional Education program here at Western University. So with us tonight, some of the hosts that you'll be hearing and the voices is myself. My name is Courtney, and I am a recruitment and program coordinator here at the Faculty of Education. And I'm also here with my fellow colleague, Amber. Now, we also do have with us this evening Jane, Julie, and Brandy, and they are the graduate affairs assistants at the Faculty of Education, and they are a wealth of knowledge about our program. So you'll be hearing from them this evening in the question and answer period as well, which is great. So thank you everybody for joining us. Now, we will be recording tonight's session, and we will be sending out a recording and the slide deck within 48 hours. So don't worry if you have to pop out and leave. Also, don't try and write down as quickly as possible any of the notes or links because we will be sending it out. So just sit back and enjoy, and we'll give you the slide deck and recording in a couple of days. So for tonight's agenda, we're going to go over the program overview and program structure. We'll then talk about the admissions requirements and the application process, which I know some of you are probably eager to talk about. I do recognize some names in the chat feature that I've been talking with, so we'll spend some time there. We'll talk about fees and funding, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end. So that will be an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have about the program or something that I maybe didn't mention that you had a question about throughout the presentation. So first, we will talk about the program overview. So our Masters of Professional Education, or MPEd as you may hear us call it, because that is quite a mouthful, we do offer 10 different fields of study. So those fields of study are listed there, and you can find them on our website as well. Now, when you are applying to the MPEd or Masters of Professional Education, you're actually applying to a specific field of study, and you're not actually applying to the MPEd in general. So we always recommend taking a look at our website and finding an area that is of interest to you. So on our website, it'll give you information about different courses and program information. So if you're not certain which field of study you're interested in, or maybe you're on the fence about 2 or 3 different fields of study, we do recommend taking a look at some of the different courses that you may be taking in those fields and throughout your time within the MPEd program. We always recommend taking something that is of interest to you because, of course, the time spent within this master's program, you want to make sure you're interested in it. It'll make the time just go by a lot nicer if it's an area that you're enjoying. We won't go in depth into each individual field of study in tonight's webinar just because there are 10 of them and I'd probably keep you here all night if we did. So we will talk more high level, but if you do have specific questions about your particular program and courses, feel free to email us and we're happy to go through them individually. So program features. Our program is typically a fully online program. And the reason I say typically is because our TESOL program is actually a fully on-site program. And our field of Aboriginal education is actually a hybrid program where you may be completing on-site and online. But for the remainder of the other fields of study, they are fully online. So the MPEd program relies primarily on asynchronous learning, where you'll be completing weekly forum posts, readings, and assignments. There may be a few synchronous sessions hosted by faculty in each of your courses. These are typically recorded and sent out, but you can expect to devote about 8 to 10 hours per week to those fully online programs. Now, it is a course-based master's program, so you will not actually be completing a thesis or a master's research project. And our program operates on what we call scaffolded learning, where each course taken builds upon what was learned in previous courses. So the program is sequential in nature and courses are mandatory. It is a cohort-based program, which means that approximately 20 students will be admitted into each cohort. And then this cohort structure will provide ongoing support within the coursework. So you'll actually be completing the program with the same 20 colleagues that you've had from the beginning all the way through the end. And this really will enable students to develop a professional community of practice and support throughout their time in the program. And it is suited for working professionals. So a lot of times we get the question of why is it called the Masters of Professional Education, or is this the same as a Masters of Education? And essentially the MPEd and the Masters of Education are the same. You are receiving a fully accredited master's degree in the field of education. We use the term professional within our program for multiple reasons, but the most important is that since our program is actually offered online, students are able to maintain full-time employment. And you're actually able to take the program and utilize your professional practice and integrate that right into the program. So that's one of the reasons why we call it a Master's of Professional Education program. And because you're spending about 8 to 10 hours typically to the program and able to continue working, this is why we say it is suited for working professionals. So some of the common questions that we receive about our MPEd program is, what is the duration? So it is a 2-year program typically. Now our TESOL program is a 1-year program, so keep that in mind. And the program does start in September of each year. Now our Aboriginal education starts in the summer, but for all other fields, they do start September of every year. And the program is typically delivered completely online, except for the 2 I had mentioned earlier, TESOL and Aboriginal. Now, the program is not research intensive, so meaning you're not doing a thesis and you're not writing that master's research project, and it is professionally focused. And then also some of our programs are capstone focused as well, and typically you do have the ability to maintain full-time employment. I would say TESOL, you may not have that ability to maintain full-time employment because it is that 1-year program, but for the other online ones, you would have that ability to do so. So the timeline, this will give you a general idea of what the 2 years would look like if you enter into our program. So the program is consisting of 2 full years, and you're actually taking 1 course per term. And this is how it is manageable with full-time employment. So you'd actually be taking 1 course in the fall, 1 course in the winter, and then you're taking 2 in the summer. You take 1 in intersession and 1 in summer. Intersession just means the session in between winter and summer. So you take 4 courses in your first year, and then in your second year, you're again taking 1 course in the fall, 1 course in the winter, and then depending on the field of study that you're in, it may vary on what you're doing in the intersession and summer. So this could be that capstone project we talked about, a culminating course or a placement. We do get a lot of questions on what exactly a capstone project is, and for those interested, it is a culminating project which draws from insights gained throughout the program, and it'll use practices from research, theory, and your own professional practice where you'll actually be doing a detailed plan, and this will address a problem in your learning organization. So it's not a thesis, it's not a master's research project, it's a capstone project. But again, take a look on our website. You can take a look at the courses depending on the field of study you're interested in and see what that would look like for you for the next 2 years. But this does give you a general overview of what that does look like. Application and admission. So we'll go over both of those. So for admissions requirements, the basic admissions requirements that the admissions committee is looking for when applying to this program is that you have a degree. Now I know it says an honors degree. An honors degree is recommended, it is preferred. It's not mandatory. We are looking for a 4-year undergraduate degree or equivalent. So that would be 20 full courses from an accredited university. And then we're also looking to see that you've obtained a B or a 70% average, and that's actually calculated on your final 2 years of study. So those are the basic admissions requirements. Again, depending on the field of study that you're applying to, there are some recommendations. For example, if you're interested in the applied behavior analysis, it is recommended to have a background in psychology just due to the psychology that is within the program. What I will say too is that if you do have, say, a 3-year degree or you don't quite meet that 70%, it doesn't automatically exclude you from applying to the program. What would happen in that instance is that you could still apply, you would just be considered on a case-by-case basis if seats were available into the program. So if you are in one of those situations, send us an email and we're happy to discuss that a little bit further. Again, the main basic requirements are that 4-year undergraduate degree, that minimum of 70% in your final 2 years of study. So key areas that the admissions committee is looking for. Now, what I will say is that the admissions committee will actually be reviewing each individual applicant as a whole. So no one piece of your application outweighs another. So just because you have a 95% doesn't mean that your application automatically is going to get in just because of the grades. All pieces are looked at and you are looked at as a whole. So I have listed here everything that they do take a look at, and this is in no particular order, but they will of course be looking to see that you meet those admissions average, that you have that 70% in your final 2 years of study. We will be looking at your statement of intent. So we do strongly recommend spending time on that statement of intent. Now, that statement of intent is really how the admissions committee gets to know you. The goal of the statement is to really give your application a voice. Now, it's 500 words, so be mindful, make sure you're keeping it within that 500 words. And I know that can be tough, but some of the things that you might want to touch upon would be why you're interested in the program, maybe what you're currently doing professionally, or what you hope to achieve professionally or academically in the future. Just make sure to specify the field of study that you're applying to, and again, keep it at that 500 words, but do spend time on the statement of intent. It is a crucial part of the application. We will also be taking a look at your references. So we are looking for 2 professional and 1 academic reference. Now, if you do not have an academic reference, if you've been out of school for many, many years and you cannot obtain an academic reference, that is okay. We will accept your 3rd reference to be professional. But if you are able to get a hold of that academic reference, that is preferred. So do try to do so if you can. And then they'll also be taking a look at your work experience. So again, this is a professional program. So any work experience that you have is highly regarded. So make sure that you're uploading your resume and you're indicating any work experience you may have, whether that's paid, voluntary. Make sure that you're including all of that information. And of course, having work experience within education is great, just because we are, of course, the Faculty of Education, and these are the types of programs that you'd be applying to. So the process, what does this look like? So as many of you probably know, we did try and send out an email once applications did open, is that, of course, applications are open. Now, if you haven't had a chance to take a look yet, we do highly recommend taking a look at our How to Apply page on the website. So when we do send out this slide deck, it's that link at the bottom. So we do recommend taking a look at that, and that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to apply and the documentation that you will need to upload. So our applications are actually completed through our School of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, or SGPS. They are the governing body of all graduate programs at Western. So it's not actually completed through the OUAC or OUAC application system as you would have applied for undergrad, but it's done through the School of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. So what I do recommend too is, if you know you are going to apply, is getting into the application process and taking a peek. You don't actually have to complete your application in one sitting. You can save it and go back to it as many times as you need to. So you can definitely take a look beforehand, but some of the things that you will notice is you'll have to pay that $120 application fee. Now, it will make you pay that fee before you get to the supplemental document section. Once you pay the fee, your application won't automatically submit. I do get that question. People are nervous to do that. You can still go in and out of the application and still update. But you'll also want to make sure that you're inputting your references. Now, we did talk a little bit about references, that we're looking for 2 professional and 1 academic. But you don't actually need to gather reference letters. We don't accept reference letters, but instead, we have electronic forms that your referees will fill out and submit back to us. So when you are in the application process, as soon as you input your referee's name and information and click save, they will automatically be sent an electronic form to fill out and submit back to us. Now, I do emphasize that as soon as you click save is when they send it, not once you submit. I do have some students messaging me a little panicked that they just put their information, didn't let the references know they were using them, and they received a form automatically. It is pretty instant, so do touch base with your references, let them know you're using them. And then once you go through the application, it'll ask for your personal information, your academic information, your schooling. You'll also want to then upload your supporting or supplemental documents. So within your application, you'll have to include your transcript. So these can be unofficial within your application. They do not need to be official right away. So a PDF of your grades is sufficient in that. Should you be offered admission into the program, you would then have to arrange to send us official transcripts, but unofficial are fine within your application. You'll want to upload your statement of intent, and you'll want to upload your resume as well. Now, a resume or CV, whichever you have, one is not preferred over another. You don't have to go out and write a brand new resume just for your application. You can definitely use one that you have, but just make sure that it is indicating the work experience that you do have and what it is that you have done professionally in the past or currently doing. I will also just make a quick note too, we will actually be hosting a how to apply webinar in a couple of weeks. So if you're interested in that, we'll actually go through the application process in more detail and give some tips and tricks as well. So stay tuned for that. Deadlines. So I know it sounds like deadlines are quite a bit away, but you know what? They come a lot sooner than sometimes are anticipated. So do be mindful of deadlines. We do have different deadlines depending on the field of study that you're interested in. So if you're interested in the ABA or Applied Behavioral Analysis program in TESOL, that one is going to be coming sooner than later. February will hit pretty soon. So February 1st, 2021 is for those two programs. The MPEd and Aboriginal Education deadline is April 15th. And then all of the other fields of study, the deadline will be June 30th. Now, I did want to note that our international education program, you may have noticed that applications are not open yet. They will be opening later in 2021. So not to worry if you haven't seen that yet. So before you apply, this is a little bit of a recap, but it is something that you do just want to make sure you're being mindful of. You want to make sure that you are reviewing the admissions requirements for your particular program and reviewing the program information. So our website does have a wealth of information about each individual program where you can take a look at each particular course that you'd be doing, different faculty members involved. So we do recommend taking a look at our website. Make sure that you are preparing your documentation and that you have those transcripts, statement of intent, and resume. What I will say is with your application, just note that all pieces, all documentation of your application must be submitted and received by the admissions committee in order to be considered complete. So if you submit your application and your references have not submitted their form, your application will be considered incomplete. So keep an eye out on that. Make sure all of your documentation is uploaded and everything has been received. And then again, just note those application deadlines. Don't wait until the very last day. Don't wait until June 29th at 11 p.m. We never recommend doing that. You just never know what can happen with technology and uploading. We never say rush an application. Don't rush either, but don't wait to the last minute as well. So just be mindful of that. Work on the application, take your time, but don't wait to the end to submit. Decision timelines. Now, this is a question we get a lot, and I wish I had an answer for you. I wish I could say, April, for whatever the day. I don't have a specific day that you will hear a decision, but I can give you a general guideline. So typically, decisions are released about 6 to 8 weeks after all documentation has been received by the admissions committee. Now, if you are applying to the ABA program, all applications will actually be reviewed after the application deadline, so after February 1st. If you're applying to our other programs, they're actually reviewed on a rolling basis or reviewed as they are received. So we can say typically about 6 to 8 weeks, but that can be shorter or longer for any number of reasons. I wish I could give you a day, but I can't. The applications go through quite a process. When you do submit them, they first go to SGPS for review and they review your transcripts and grades before they actually are released to our program and sent to the admissions committee. Now, you don't need to remember all that. I'm just saying that there are quite a bit of steps that it has to go through before our admissions committee does receive it. Okay, so typically 6 to 8 weeks, you can kind of expect to hear a decision, but that's a guideline. Now, if you do have an offer, I don't believe we're there yet. I think it's a little bit too soon that anybody would have an offer, but hey, it is coming. So if you do have an offer, you'll want to make sure that you're looking out for an email from your graduate affairs assistant. You'll actually receive two emails. You'll receive one from the graduate affairs assistant and one from SGPS. You'll want to make sure that you accept your offer in the student center and that you're paying your $250 tuition deposit before that deadline of June 1st. Now, if you do receive an email and offer of acceptance, you will be given step-by-step instructions. So don't worry about having to remember all of that. We're just kind of going over it right now. Just be mindful of that. And then after all that's been done, you'll want to wait for information on registration and orientation. Now, I would say typically information about registration and orientation is sent out in the summertime, and that's just when you'll just receive a little bit more information. So if you have been waiting a little while and you haven't heard anything, not to worry, we will reach out to you. It is typically just that summertime that you'll hear about it. Fees and funding. So how much does the program cost? So fees are published on the registrar's website. So if you are a domestic student, so a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, you'd be looking at paying approximately $2,800 per course. Now, I know it says per half course on the fee schedule, and people are very confused about that. And that just means $2,800 per course. So there are 4 courses per year and 8 courses total for the program. So you'd actually be paying for 1 course in September, 1 course in January, and you'd be paying 2 courses in May. So that would be $2,800 in September, $2,800 January, and fast math, $5,600 in May. So just keep note of that you'd be paying 2 in the summer. Now, if you are an international student, you'd be paying approximately $3,100 per course. And then if you are applying to TESOL, you're looking at approximately $30,000 for the entire program. Now, all fees are assessed per course, and again, you pay 3 times per year. Funding sources. Now, because our program is offered fully online and you're able to maintain your full-time employment, we don't actually offer internal funding at the faculty level. Now, there are external funding sources that we do recommend. A lot of our students will rely on government scholarships. So scholarshipscanada.com that we have listed there is a scholarship database where you can actually input all of your information, your demographics, and then it finds a scholarship that matches up with you. Or if it does at least find a scholarship that matches up with you, it'll notify you to apply. So we do recommend taking a look there. That we definitely give out many scholarships each year, and that's definitely an external opportunity that you can take a look at. A lot of our students will also talk to their employer for employer assistance. So reaching out to your management or leadership or even your HR. Sometimes organizations do offer some support and assistance for their employees that are looking to enhance their education. So we always do recommend take a look there first. As well, it is considered a full-time program, so the program is OSAP eligible. Students will also look at bank loans and then also the lifelong learning plan. So if you do have RRSPs, you do have the option to withdraw for lifelong learning. So you can take a look at some of the government regulations on that if you do have RSPs. Okay, well, that is the end of the presentation, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the floor up. I can see some of you have already been asking questions in the chat. So if you do have any questions or something that you've missed or that I have made clear, please feel free to ask them in the chat feature. Again, the hand raising won't work. You'll want to make sure that you're typing it within the chat feature so that we can actually get to the questions there. I think all of them have been answered up to date so far by email or by messaging. Let's see. Could an AQ instructor provide an academic reference? Now, when we talk about academic reference, we're looking for someone that has overseen you in academic capacity, and they're able to attest to your academic abilities. I actually haven't had that question before. I don't know, Jane or Julie or Jen, if you've seen that before, if an AQ instructor has provided a reference before?
Hi, Courtney. It's Jen. Yeah, sure, I can answer that one. That's absolutely fine if you want to use an AQ instructor. I mean, we're looking for someone who can give you a reference about your academic ability and your, ability to write at a graduate level. I would just say more important than who your reference is, specifically whether it's AQ or an undergrad course, it's really you want to pick the people that are going to give you a very strong reference.
Perfect. Thank you. I had a question. Where did that one go? If next year we still need to study online, will the tuition be reduced a bit? So I'm wondering if you're talking about TESOL, because all of the other MPEd programs are offered online, so tuition is actually going to remain the same as it is an online program. Just let me know if it was TESOL that you're talking about. Jen, we do have a laddering question that maybe you can help answer. It says, is the one-year ladder still being offered from Western BEd students graduating this spring? How many students are accepted for that? And is there anything else different that needs to be included when applying?
Sure, absolutely. I will address laddering if I can just briefly. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about when we're saying laddering, this is simply a way for our current students in our Bachelor of Education program to go into year two of, well, the end of year one, beginning of year two of our MPEd program directly. So if you're not a current BEd student with the Faculty of Education at Western, don't worry about this. But for the students out there that are hoping to ladder in, I guess I just want to give you a little bit of a precursor. So laddering is available this year. So if you are in year two of your BEd program right now, you can ladder in the summer of 2021 into our program. But it's the last year we are offering this. And you might wonder, well, why are you stopping offering this? Because most of the teacher education candidates that have used the laddering option tend to not end up taking it. So the reason for that is when you ladder into our programs, you're only going to take 5 or 6 courses in your MPEd. Typically, our MPEDs are 8 courses. So that's fine. You're going to get advanced standing for either 2 or 3 courses, depending on the field, and you will graduate with an MPEd or a master's degree in the field. But if you have aspirations, as far as teaching in Ontario for things like an A4 pay scale or a principal's qualification, most of those requirements will require a 10-course master's. So students are finding that although they would, in some situations, they're very happy with a master's degree, what they really need is the additional courses. So what we find is a lot of our BEd laddering students tend to not ladder and tend instead to take the full program, the full 8 courses, because they want the extra credits. And in answer to your other questions, you don't need to do anything specific in your application beyond making sure that it's clear in your statement of intent that you are hoping to ladder. We just need a mechanism for making sure that your offer or your decision goes out earlier, and that if you do decide to ladder with us, we have you in courses in the summer. But as far as document-wise, there's nothing additional you need to provide. Just make sure it's clear in your statement of intent that you want to ladder.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Thanks. I do see a question here about if you use your RRSPs with a lifelong learning plan, if it's tax deducted, you'll just want to reach out and take a look at the government website. So they're the ones that govern that. So do a little bit more research into that. I did see a question in there about how many people we seat or the acceptance rate. Now, each individual program is different. Each year is different. Applicant pools change year over year. So we don't actually have an acceptance rate for each individual program, if that's what you're sort of looking for. So unfortunately, we don't have those statistics to provide. Is the ABA 4th or 5th edition?
Hi, Courtney, I can answer that. It is the most current edition, so we are all up to date. I believe that's the 5th. So all of the courses since 2019 have been updated to the most current edition for BICB regulations.
And I did see a question in there, I think it was answered, but I'm still going to say it out loud just in case anybody has missed it, is that if you have the 4-year undergraduate degree, but you've also done post-secondary certificates or diplomas, absolutely, you can still include those within your application. In the supplemental document section of your application, there's an opportunity to upload any additional information you feel the admissions committee should know about you when reviewing your application. Your grades just will be calculated on the final 2 years of your undergraduate degree. How long has the program been running? And I don't know if you wanted to touch upon that, because each individual field probably has a different length of time it's been running, but I guess a general overview of how long we've been offering the MPEd program.
Yeah, so Courtney, I can answer that. So we've offered the MPEd since 2013. And most of the fields you've seen today were original fields, although they may have been tweaked a little bit, but most of them have been in existence since 2013. Courtney, can I just speak a little bit to the MPEd ECE questions we're seeing in the chat? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yes, I understand that there's some interest in being certified with the College of ECE after you take the MPEd in early childhood education. That is not an automatic process. It is something, so the college requires additional things beyond our program. They require additional hours and courses here or there. So you should check with the college, but it's certainly, you're certainly well poised to go get registered after our program. But we are in the process of trying to get accredited with them, so that might change over the next coming years. But certainly, we have an amazing faculty coordinator in our MPEd ECE, Veronica Pacini-Ketchbaugh, and she's great. She's a great resource for students, and she certainly touches base with students in the program with opportunities to get those additional qualifications if she has them. But just taking our MPEd alone not qualify you to go get registered. There are additional qualifications that you need to meet for that body. Okay.
Do you know how this program impacts Quaco routing? Since it is an MPEd, is it considered the same as the MEd program? So our MPEd program is a fully accredited master's program. So you would be receiving a master's within the field of education. We can't really speak to Quaco and any of those types. You'd want to reach out to them specifically for what it is that they would consider. Yes, our MPEd program is a fully accredited master's program within education. Does BA degree obtained outside Canada need to be accredited again in Canada? So actually, if you do have transcripts that are, if they are in another language, they do need to be translated. We use the WES, the World, I can't think off the top of my head, World Education Services, WES. If you want to have those translated and they do need to be with your transcripts, they can actually do the conversion of what the degree is and how it's comparable into Canada. Can you please talk more about the faculty professors that administer the course in the program? I'm not really sure what you mean exactly about that. We do on our website, sorry, we do showcase some of the faculty members. You can take a look at each individual faculty member and their profile if you're interested in some of the work or research or anything like that. Would you recommend applying sooner than closer to the deadline? Does it make a difference? So as I had mentioned, some of our programs actually do operate on a rolling admissions where applications are reviewed as they are received. So it is possible that the program could fill before the application deadline. So we don't ever recommend waiting till that June 30th deadline or the day before the deadline. Don't rush your application. Make sure that you're still taking your time on it. But of course, just want to make sure that you are getting that in so that you do have the opportunity to have it reviewed before the program fills. This is a great question, actually. Can you speak on behalf of alumni that have graduated from the MPEd program? Actually, my colleague who's here with us tonight, Amber, has recently graduated from MPEd in Equity, Diversity, and Social Justice. Amber, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you think you'd be able to speak a little bit to your experience about the program and taking the program? I think this is a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So I did graduate in fall of 2019 from the MPEd in Equity, Diversity, and Social Justice. And just speaking from my experience in the program, I highly enjoyed it. It was a great program. It's really manageable to do while working full time. I also really liked the cohort structure. So I know Courtney talked a little bit about the cohorts having around 20 to 25 students. You travel the entire program with them, so you do get a lot of peer-to-peer learning. In addition to the faculty are really approachable. You're using forums regularly, so you have that opportunity to interact and learn from one another. I would be happy to chat about the program in more detail. So if you do want to know about equity or any of the streams, you can always email us separately outside of this too. But just speaking from a graduate perspective, it's a great program.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Amber. Appreciate that. What have we missed here? So I'm interested in the MPEd ABA, but see it's recommended to have a background in psychology. I would like to know if I should obtain an additional background in psychology before I apply to this. They do say that an apparent background in psychology is recommended for the ABA program, and that's just so that you would be successful in taking the program because it is heavily focused within psychology. So, I mean, if you're interested in taking another program, that would be your decision to make, but we do like to see an apparent background so that you would be successful in the program. The parent background doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have majored in psychology or anything like that, but we do want to see courses within psychology. Does an international student need to provide IELTS score any English requirements? So yes, if you are an international applicant and English is not your first language, we will require an English proficiency test score. We look at IELTS, TOEFL, currently Duolingo. So yes, that is part of the application. What I will say in the application, if you've started an application or if you're going to start, in that languages portion of the application, if English is your first language, you can actually keep that portion blank and unchecked and move on. You might not get a check mark that the page has been completed, but it's okay because English is your first language. If English is not your first language, you want to identify in that language section of the application. If we feel that after having completed some courses that we'd like to change our area of concentration, would we have to start over again? Have you seen that happen before, Jen or Julie or Jane? You probably still have to apply. You would still need to apply to the program, but in terms of transfer credits.
No, each MPEd field that we have is completely distinct and the courses are completely unique. So we don't allow switching between the different fields. So if you were in one field and decided you wanted to go to the other, you would need to reapply to start them over. I've been the manager of the graduate office for a little over 5 years. I haven't seen too many people wanting to switch their fields. They are just so distinct and unique that it doesn't tend to come up much. So unless I'm missing something, and you were thinking of, I don't know, maybe you're thinking you want to do some math and some curriculum or something, but typically students tend to stay with the field they choose at the time of application.
Perfect, thank you.
Courtney, did you want me to take that question from Janine?
Yeah, actually, if you wouldn't mind. I'm sorry, I was just reading that one.
No worries. I know there's a lot to keep up with. It's an ABA question. We get a lot of questions about ABA. It's probably our one of our biggest MPEDs. So yes, having that strong educational background in psychology is great. You've been working as an ABA therapist for a year. I mean, that's pretty good. I wouldn't say you necessarily have to have longer than a year, but keep in mind that your application is adjudicated on a lot of factors, right? It's not just your professional experience, it's not just your grades, it's also your statement of intent and your references. So I would suggest you apply this year. If you do not receive an offer, you could always try again a second year with more months or years of experience under your belt. But I wouldn't say that having a year of experience would bar you from applying. Absolutely not.
So the program starts in September, and when does it end? So it is a 2 full year program. Starts September. It would end, I guess, Jen, would it be that August area, the summer area, just before the next September?
So when you start the MPEd in September, you would end your MPEd August 31st.
August 31st, perfect.
Years later, about for TESOL 1 year. Yeah.
Right.
So, Courtney, since I have my microphone unmuted, I can answer April's question if you like. So, the MPEd, Equity, Diversity, and Social Justice, it has a really wide range of different students in different professional positions across it. So you do not necessarily have to be teaching in a school. We have quite a diverse group of people who are teaching in different capacities across organizations, not even schools. So it's certainly not a requirement. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised to see the cross section we have of students in our MPEd equity program.
If some reason the application is missing anything, will we be notified? So you do want to make sure it is up to the applicant to make sure that all pieces of the application have been received. So, if a referee hasn't submitted their reference form, actually SGPS will reach out to you to let you know that they haven't. But upon that, it would be really up to you just to make sure that you've uploaded everything. So it will be considered incomplete if not everything has been uploaded. Unfortunately, we have seen it too many times where we get an email in August saying, how come I haven't heard yet? And it's because their application is considered incomplete. And we don't know if maybe you didn't mean to upload it for a reason or not. So really, please make sure that you're making sure everything has been uploaded. So for those who are still wondering if you do need to provide IELTS or TOEFL or an English proficiency test score, so if English is not your first language, we do want to see an English proficiency test score. There are exemptions if you have studied academically full-time in a university for 2 years or full-time in a college for 3 years, you may be considered exempt from providing IELTS or an English proficiency test score. But ultimately, this is the decision of the School of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, and they do reserve the right to ask anyone for a test score. Since applications are reviewed on a rolling basis, when do you suggest we have it in by? Would January be okay? Yes, of course. I mean, January would be okay. I just don't want you to wait till June 29th, just because there is the potential that it can fill or of any technological issues of uploading your documents. But just make sure you're taking your time and you're submitting an application that you've worked on. The $120 application fee, is it only for Western University or can I use it to apply for another? So yes, this isn't not unfortunately like it was with undergraduate where you have a fee and you could apply to 3. So this would only be a fee for Western. I wouldn't know what the fees are for other universities, but the 120 is Western's application fee. So we would want to see all university and transcripts. So make sure you are including all transcripts. What I will say too is in the academic section, I don't know if I've said this already, I might have, in the academic section of your application, if you are inputting schooling that you've done, you want to make sure that you have transcripts to follow up with that as well. So if you've listed schooling that you have and you haven't included transcripts for it, your application will be considered incomplete. Are the majority of students in the program teachers and principals? We do have teachers and principals, but again, as Jen said, in some of our fields, we have a wide diversity of applicants within our program. It really depends on the field of study you're interested in and what the type of candidate typically looks like, but it's not solely teachers that do apply to our program. Many people within an educational setting do apply. If you do have transcripts on your teacher education program or BEd program, we do recommend including those. We won't use those grades as part of calculating your average, but we do highly recommend including that within your application. We do want to see that, especially because our programs are in the field of education. Having that type of degree is wonderful to have in your application. this is a great question. I'm finishing a concurrent education program this year and I'm receiving my MPEd at my school. Our undergrad degree has not been conferred and won't be until June. When we graduate, would I be able to provide my current transcripts and then a finalized transcript? So absolutely, you can still apply to the program while you're currently in a program. You want to include the marks that you have currently for your program, but we just say that you do have to have your program completed by August 31st before you begin in September. If you were to be provided admission into the program, it'd be conditional on receiving those transcripts. So yes, you would need to provide the official transcripts once you did complete.
Hey, Courtney, I can jump in for a second just to address Ramanpreet's question about why you would choose an MPEd at Western, just speaking
Absolutely.
again from an alumni perspective. So essentially, you need to choose the program that fits right for you based on your needs. So what I would do is pose this question back to you. And what are you looking at getting out of your graduate studies? So again, speaking more personally, for me, the program delivery was definitely something that stood out a lot. I was able to do this while working full time, so it didn't impact my career in that sense. It's also all asynchronous. So if that's something that interests you, being able to work away kind of at your own pace versus live classes. Another thing that's quite unique with Western is the different specialties we have. So as Courtney mentioned, there's 10 different specialties. So I would say that that may be a reason that students choose Western, just because it aligns well with what they want to achieve in their career. So it really just depends what you are looking for, what you want to get out of it. We do have amazing faculty profiles on our website. So if you want to learn a little bit more about who you'd be learning from with our researchers and our professors, that's another great resource to help you with your decision making.
Thanks, Amber. I appreciate that. Is the MPEd Aboriginal in person usually? So that one is more of a hybrid program where you will have some online classes and you will have some in-person classes as well. Does the MPEd allow you to complete your ED? That is a great question. So one of the requirements of the ED, or the Doctor of Education program, is a master's degree. Typically within the field of educational leadership is preferred, but other master's degrees would be accepted. So absolutely, if you do have your MPEd, that would allow you to apply to the ED with that master's program, and of course meeting all of the other admissions requirements for the ED program as well. So can students take time off while they're in their MPEd if need be? That's a great question. We do get that question quite often. If for whatever reason you did need to take time off, you would have to take off the entire year in order to join back in with the next cohort. So you wouldn't be able to do it for a month or so. You would have to take that full year off and then come back in with the next incoming cohort. You just want to make sure, if that were the case, that you'd reach out to your graduate affairs assistant and they can kind of go through that information with you at that time. Jen, the field of Aboriginal education, we have some questions asking about where the in-person is. Now, I know we have First Nations typically. Is that the same going forward this year, or has that been changed at all?
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, it has been changed because of the pandemic. Six Nations Polytechnic has been closed. So we have moved the current students online. We actually did not take an intake this past summer just because we really do like this program to be in person wherever possible. So, as soon as the pandemic allows us, and hopefully for next summer, those courses will take place back on site. And what they tend to do is run for like 3 weekends in a term, or in the summer 1 week at a time, or 1 or 2 weeks depending on the course load. But there are components that are still done online. So like, as Courtney has said, it's a bit of a hybrid, but you do have in-person learnings with really wonderful instructors and other people studying in the Indigenous area in your cohort. So it is primarily face-to-face as soon as the pandemic ends.
And do we prioritize Indigenous applicants into the MPEd Aboriginal program?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's definitely, I don't think we've had any non-Indigenous applicants in that particular program. But yes, there's definitely an option, a pathway there.
So again, we have, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I wasn't speaking. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. What was the one I was just looking at? The approximate timeline. So even for the ABA, once the application deadline has passed, the February 1st, it would typically be about 6 to 8 weeks after all documentation has been received by the admissions committee. Oh, this is a great question. Amber, you can probably speak to this too, or Jen, but because the program is online, are you invited to the graduation ceremony at the university, or is it just mailed out?
Yep, there is a convocation that you're welcome to be a part of. It's traditionally the fall convocation, so in October that you would be invited to on campus.
Hi, Nick. I'm just seeing your question there. Why was the laddering to master's discontinued? I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'll just give you the Coles Notes version. So this is the last year we're offering it because quite simply most of the BEd students that have applied or thought about coming to our laddering program have decided they would rather take the full 8-credit course, 8-credit MPEd, as opposed to the 5 or 6-credit MPEd, because it just aligns better with their future career goals for either principal qualifications or A4 pay scales, those types of things. Those all require 10 credit masters. So they'd just rather get the credits in earlier as opposed to later. And you are certainly welcome to apply to the full program that starts in September as opposed to starting in the summer.
I'm going to read this question out loud. I know, Amber, you just answered it, but I think it's just great in case anybody has missed it. And the question was, do MPEd graduates have opportunities to stay connected at Western even after graduating the program? And yes, absolutely. You'd be considered a Western alumni and you would have, as Amber said, connection to that network. That's a great question. Jen, did you want to speak to Camilla's question? Are PQP courses accepted as credit options for all programs?
Not really. So I assume when you mean credit options, you're looking for advanced standing to not take a course or two within the MPEd based on a few PQP qualifications. Most of our programs do not allow that. We do make some small allowances in our MPEd education leadership, but if you're looking for advanced standing, you should note that in your application. You can either put in your statement of intent or upload a supplemental document and give us outline and everything you can about the PQP courses you took, and if you are chosen to receive an offer, the adjudication committee will give you a decision on whether you would receive advanced standing for any or all of those requests in your application. Courtney, would you like me to speak to the laboratory of practice?
Would you mind answering Corinne?
Yeah, so of course, yeah, in our ABA program in second year, we do have a laboratory of practice. So this is a course, but it is a required component that you have somewhere that you're working in that particular field. I would say don't worry about it too much now. You're going to get really fulsome communications from our faculty coordinator, Dr. Nicole Neal, about this particular component, and you will have an instructor that will lead you through all the requirements and everything that's necessary. And if for some reason, like parental leave or heaven forbid you're in between jobs or whatever, we do have an alternate pathway where you can do a case study instead of having to be in the laboratory of practice. But I would say 98% of the students in our ABA program are working in the field, so the laboratory of practice just folds nicely into what they're already doing.
Regarding advanced standing, is it on a case-by-case basis depending on the courses submitted? With our program, because of that scaffolding nature that we did talk about, and courses are sequential in nature, typically we don't offer advanced standing. If you do feel that you have courses that do directly align, you can submit them within your application and they'll be reviewed. And then should you, should we see that some of those courses do align and should any of them, be considered for advanced standing, you would be told at that time.
Courtney, can I answer Nima's question?
Yeah, please.
The background in psychology. So, Nima, if you're only talking about a undergraduate course in psychology, I don't have a crystal ball and I can't predict the future, but I would say that that would not meet the requirements of a substantial background in psychology that we see in our applicants. Our ABA program is, of course, accredited. It's quite large. We take in anywhere from 80 to 100 students a year. But I will just note for you that it is also highly competitive. That we do receive hundreds of applications for this program every year. So you just have to realize that you will be competing against people who do have a distinct and fulsome background in psychology, which is what the adjudication committee is looking for. So if you're thinking about going back and strengthening your application with more psychology courses, that is certainly a prerogative and something you can consider and would certainly help an application in future years.
So Nikki, should we have two separate applications if we want to apply to the ABA program and equity, diversity, and social justice, or do we have to choose just one? So yes, you can certainly apply to multiple programs, but you would have to submit two separate applications and there would be two separate application fees. If you're interested in both programs, you can certainly apply to both. Oh, Julie, I just saw you responded. Okay, we have a couple more minutes that we'll kind of stick around for if you do have any other questions. Now, again, if we didn't get to your question or you think of something afterwards, which I know can happen, please feel free to email us. Our emails are up on the screen there, and we're happy to help answer any questions. When will the other webinar be? Amber, is that in 2 weeks?
Yes, it is. November 19th at 5 p.m. as well. We'll be doing the webinar just on the application process, yes.
You're very welcome, everybody. Well, I can see we're kind of starting to head out. So thank you so much to everybody that took time out of their evening to spend with us. The questions were so wonderful, and hopefully you did learn a little bit more. And reach out to us if you do think of anything else. Enjoy your evening, everybody. From China. Oh my goodness, what time is it there? Wow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Good morning. Yes, okay. It's really early, 6 a.m., isn't it? 7 a.m. Okay, good. Oh, we just had daylight savings. That's why.